Welcome back to another episode of Between Us and Y'all. I'm Yasmeen,
I'm Nafees.
and we want to welcome you back to another episode. We want to thank you all for listening in and giving us your feedback. It's been really good, and it's been a great way for us to build our conversation skills as well as share different conversation skill strategies with other mothers and sons. Today, we are going to be talking about communication, specifically how to set the stage for healthy communication, healthy, conversations that you're having between your son and your mom, as well as checking in. But before we get started, as we usually do, we like to advertise for local businesses. Today, actually, we're going to be talking about not a local artist. I keep forgetting we're not in California. We're in Atlanta now, but we're from Oakland, California. Since May is Mental Health Awareness Month, we're going to be specifically talking about an artist that I believe has helped to lift the spirits of different people during this quarantine. And that is a brother by the name, his artist name is Fantastic Negrito. His real name is Xavier. He's a brother that's located in Oakland, California. I had the pleasure of meeting him, and I've seen him perform. And he, like other artists, have gone live for free on IG and other social media outlets to perform and allow different people to tune in to uplift their spirits. He has a website too if you want to learn a little bit more about him. Nafees is going to mention that in a minute, but just check him out. He's won a Grammy back in, I believe it was 2016, for Best Contemporary Blues Album, I believe was the topic that he won for. But he's a really dope artist. What's his website?
It's famousnegrito.com.
Fantastic Negrito.
Fantasticnegrito.com.
All right, so check him out when you get a chance. All right, so last time we were talking about mental health. We had some good conversation about that. Again, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we wanted to make sure that we touched on that particular topic. We enjoyed the topic, and we've enjoyed your feedback as well. Today, again, we're going to be touching on communication. It's important to know what strategies you have in place or what strategies you're using to have healthy communication between your son and your mom, or anybody really. But since this podcast is focused on communication between sons and their mothers, as well as, back and forth, we want to talk about the strategies that we've used that have been effective and some that have not been so effective. So we're going to jump right in, as we usually do, with going over some questions that we want to ask each other and share the answers with you as well. All right, so setting the stage for healthy communication is key to any relationship. Let's talk about some effective methods you and I have used to set the stage for healthy communication.
You go first.
So one of the things that I try to do all the time when I'm talking to you is to make sure I'm giving you eye contact. We're filming right now. If you guys weren't aware, we do have a YouTube page as well. So we usually film all of our episodes as well. So we're looking straight ahead right now for the people who are only listening in for the camera. So one of the things I try to do is make sure I'm giving you eye contact to make sure you know that I'm paying attention. Make sure that I'm not multitasking too much so that I'm giving you my undivided attention. And when I'm not able to do that, I let you know, hey, I'm working on something right now, but I am paying attention. If you see me, looking sideways or typing or something like that, it's because I'm working on this. Is that okay? Before we move on. Or I might say, I might try to make sure I watch my tone when I'm speaking so that I can receive the type of tone that I'm hoping to get back. I don't want to be yelling at you and expecting you to come back with a calm tone to me. And sometimes I might not do that correctly. I know I yell just like any other mom, but those are some of the things that I do. How about you?
I'll definitely say, kind of the same for me on how you stated how you have the stages of healthy communication. Definitely setting the stage of saying you have my undivided attention. I'm listening to you, and if you're doing something, then this is what I'm doing. But that's not taking my focus off of what the problem is at hand. Most of the stuff that you said is definitely the same of how I do things.
And then before we move on, it's important for you to know what your communication strategy is, between you and your son as you get older. And I think we mentioned this before in one of our other conversations, that sometimes people feel like it's a strange or an odd way for Black families, or people of color, to feel like they're asking their child for permission to do something, when it comes to communicating. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about healthy communication that is an exchange. You want to be sure that you understand what I'm asking of you, and I understand what you are asking of me, and we are very clear about what the expectations are, so that we can just have an even exchange. As you get older, you're going to have different things that you want to talk about, and you're going to have a different tone that you might want to address me with. I'm always your elder, and at the same time, I have to show you respect as well as a human being and as my son, as far as setting an example of healthy communication and how to set the stage for making sure that the conversation remains healthy.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes with that, there are some triggers that can cause communication breakdowns. What are some of those triggers that are for you? What are some triggers? What are some of those triggers that trigger you?
That cause communication breakdowns?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I'll say as it relates to you is if I feel like you're shutting down, and refusing to talk and giving me like one word answers when I know that there's more to it, no, yes, yes, no, stuff like that. Or if I feel like you're not telling me the truth, if I feel like there's like consistent lying happening, I feel like that could be a trigger for me to feel like a communication breakdown, and then another thing for me would be is if I feel like you're giving me feedback that doesn't really reflect who you are. Like I feel like someone else is rubbing off on you and you're not in control anymore as far as how you're thinking. And the way I can tell that sometimes is if you seem very unhappy and you're doing a thing that's completely new. Usually I assume that to be an influence from someone else, or maybe something you're in trouble with, but for me sometimes that can cause a communication breakdown. How about you?
For me, maybe sometimes when we're having conversations and maybe, I don't know, maybe probably not hearing me out on a topic, or not really giving me the chance to really express the way that I really want to express myself. Maybe like, this is what I want to say, but this is how I truly want to say it. And I'm not trying to come off as disrespectful or rude, but I really just want you to understand of how this topic or how the situation is making me really feel. I don't really have a lot of triggers, but that's some of the triggers that really trigger me.
Okay. It's not, you don't have to have a whole list of things. Sometimes when we hear someone else offer their feedback and they have a whole list of triggers and examples and stuff like that, we might feel like we have to match them, but it doesn't have to be that way. So that's cool that you only have the amount you have and I have the amount I have. There's no measurement there. But we learn from example. Do you feel like the way that me and your dad communicate, or parents in general, the way that they communicate have had an impact on how you communicate with others?
Yes, and also with that, in different situations, I choose on how I respond to people. Like, give an example, if I might be talking to maybe someone I like, or someone, maybe a friend, I might talk to them of the examples that you gave me. But if I'm talking to maybe a stranger or something like that, I might take it from my dad, or
Why do you feel like you do that?
Cause for me, in terms of talking to my friends or family and learning from your side is more so of, I really want to know what you're coming from, where you're getting this information from, and how can we come up with a solution, and what are the ways that I can show you that, I'm trying to hear you out, but I'm also trying to make you understand of where I'm coming from and how I see it, in a way that what I think that how my dad is more so like, in terms of moving with strangers or talking to strangers, is like, I'm not finna change how I, say anything or do anything. And
he's just one way.
Just one way. And if you're not listening to me, and there's no way you can steer me off because you don't know me and you don't know how I do stuff, and this is I'm coming to you for this, And if you not trying to help me in that situation, then I don't, then we don't need to be talking.
It sounds like we have two different ways, that you've observed. Do you feel like it's been an issue for you to try and model both of those ways?
No, I try. I try sometimes to intertwine the two, or try maybe sometimes I might how I talk to you. I might try to flip it, and like if I talk to my dad this way, I might try to talk to you that way, and vice versa, to see if maybe there's a different effect, or maybe it isn't. And sometimes there is, and how in some situations, like I might be expressing myself and be vulnerable more with my dad, and that might give a different emotion or different, feeling, or I might not be as vulnerable I am with you, and that might give a different feeling or emotion. So it's just learning and observing, trial and error.
But when you're communicating with other people, do you find it harder or easier? Which particular style do you find it to be a challenge with when you're communicating with other people? Do you find that if you try to use the way you learned from me harder, or the way you learned from your dad harder, or is neither one of them harder and you just
I think for me, sometimes when I talk to strangers, I really use the way that I learned from you, so a person can really understand where I'm coming from and how I do stuff. So they're not looking at me as being like standoffish, or me being rude, or something like that. But sometimes, depending on how someone is coming at me or something like that, I do learn, just stuff I learned from my dad. And not saying that he's always being standoffish and not wanting to talk to somebody. It's just choosing who you telling your information to, and choosing who you telling your feelings to. And there's not always it's sometimes they just being mad or being happy in the moment. So just making sure that you're not taking it for what it is, and thinking about the long run.
Okay, well, so for me, I definitely think the way that my parents communicated had an impact on how I communicate with others. And it's interesting that my way is similar to yours, but it's a little bit different. And the difference would be that some things that I saw my parents do, and the way that they communicated, I used to witness it and say, I don't want to feel like how I assume that person might be feeling. And I would, change my way of speaking. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, people that knew my mom knew that she might say something that might sound harsh, but people that knew her knew that that's just the way that she spoke sometimes. She was very direct. She was a very direct kind of speaker. And I know sometimes you joke about me being real plain and straight to the point. You know what I mean? That might end up hurting someone's feelings. So I try to pay attention to that, because I think I've picked that up from my mom as far as her communication style. And because I know that a lot of people weren't brave enough to come to her to say, hey, the way you said that to me kind of hurt my feelings, I want to be sure that I kind of alter the way that I speak sometimes, so that people don't have to tiptoe around when they're speaking to me. If they feel like I'm speaking too direct, or what I'm saying comes off as harsh. One of the things that I can remember as far as my dad, he was a big salesman, and any time that he spoke, and he was always like effective in negotiating things with people, so I paid attention to that particular style. And I'm not very good at selling things, but I am very good at communicating and understanding, you know what I mean? And so I feel like with my dad being a person that, was very convincing, and he did it for his business, I learned how to be able to pay attention to what I need to say in order to make a person comfortable in a conversation. And I want to make sure before we move on with this conversation, I don't leave the statement about my mom like she was just this terrible communicator. She was absolutely not a bad communicator. She was an effective communicator. She was a teacher, that had to communicate lessons and lesson plans and all types of stuff to people all around the world. It's just that she was very direct, and when she spoke, people listened, and she had a lot of unspoken communication too. So I want to make sure I said that.
I think what that is interesting is that the career that you choose, or like the field of work, it definitely influences how you talk and how you do stuff. So, for me, I'm more so, I'm an artist. So for me, like, in terms of how I explain things might be more abstract, or I definitely think it definitely plays a part in how you communicate.
Definitely. For those that don't know, my career is a business analyst. So and I'm a Virgo, so my whole life is analytical, and I get paid to analyze things, so I totally think that's true. That sometimes I may come across as being way too over analytical in a conversation, and somebody
Mm-hmm.
might be like, "What are you talking about? How does that relate to this?" But for
Right.
me to understand it and for me to offer the best response, sometimes I need to ask questions and make sure I understand how everything works. And it can be a challenge sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
to not communicate like that, because
Right.
I'm trying not to be, overbearing and strange.
I think for me sometimes not also being an artist, but just being very literal.
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, if someone says something, I take it in a literal sense, and not like if you say I don't like chocolate, then I'm gonna take it as you don't like chocolate, and I shouldn't be offering you chocolate.
Yeah,
But if
not
you
like something else.
yeah, and if you saying oh there was a hidden meaning or I didn't really mean that, then for me I'm still dealing with that because it's like well you said you didn't like it, so I didn't expect.
How was I supposed to know?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So with that, in talking about examples and stuff like that, we might not use those examples. And based on that, do you believe in the things that you say? Have you witnessed the impact of what you say on others?
Tell me that question one more time.
We may not use the examples that we learned from our parents. So based on the example that you use, do you believe in the things that you say? Have you witnessed the impact of what you say on others?
Yeah. Based on those examples, I would say that I believe what I say about 80 to 90% of the time. And then the last few sets, the percentage, sometimes I question what I'm saying, because we grow up with a lot of things that we've been taught, like this is the way things are, this is how you do them, and this is how you say them, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, like I said, I'm very analytical. I'll question myself, like, why do we say that to each other? Why is it cool to say it like that? And why is it comfortable for me to be able to say that to that person, but not that person? I'll check myself and check in and see, like, what is the reason why I communicate like that? And as far as it having an impact on other people, sometimes I think it can be rough and also positive. The ways that it could be rough is sometimes when you have to retract something you say in a relationship, when you're talking to somebody and you said something in a certain way, then you have to go back and say, you know what, I thought about it and I really don't feel that way. Sometimes people can look at you as being like wishy-washy,
Right.
and thinking that you don't really understand what you're doing and you're not solid, like you're scatterbrained and all over the place. When in reality, you're just trying to make sure you're communicating effectively, and you can pull things back and say, hey, I thought about it and I'm not exactly sure I feel like that. I think that's safe and fair to be able to do that. And as far as it being good, I have people that can tell me, you know what, I appreciate you coming back and telling me, that you thought about it, because I really didn't understand when you did that. And I'm okay that you changed. Everybody changes and they grow, or, if it's something that has to do with you, I feel like it is a good example to be able to show that we all make mistakes and we are all growing at the same time. What about you?
I definitely say before I go into my answer that it's good to always realize if you're in the wrong or if you are in the right, and also say that in the situation that you're in, because if
like actually admit it.
Admit it, because sometimes if sometimes that can help you like realizing, okay, like I am wrong and I am wrong for saying this how I said it, or putting it the way that I did. Or sometimes you can say, what I said was true, and I know what I said and I know how I feel about it, and I'm just glad that you was able to accept it how I said it.
It feels like it helps with healthy communication, really, especially when you're talking about setting the stage, because if you're able to own up to things, and be clear about what you didn't mean, then that would help set the stage even better, to have a healthy conversation. And you were going to say your answer?
I definitely think for me, in terms of how the examples that I use and I put it into my everyday life, I definitely think it works a lot of times. And
what works a lot of times?
Just being able to be trying to be vulnerable with the people that I love and care about. Being very cautious on who I share certain information with and who I don't. And it's funny because how I talk to my friends is, we try to create that space of, I'm here for you. I'm not judging you on what you're saying to me, and I just want to be there for you and give you the advice that if I've ever been in that situation, then I can say it to you. And so I really do that with my good friend Shamari. We always we be talking about anything when it comes to phones or video games or something like that. And before we even say anything, it's like, bro, I'm not judging you. I'm not
That's healthy.
I'm not you still
I'm proud of y'all for doing that.
like you're still gonna be my good friend or something like that. But I just want to know how you feel about this. So if this ever comes up again, or we run into this person or something like that, then I know, as an outsider or as a friend, that I know how to respond to it rather than just responding in my just in how I feel.
That's healthy. That's really powerful that you guys are doing that, especially in this social media age. In another episode, we're going to talk about social media and the impact it has on everything. You know what I mean? But one of the things that I think that's really touchy and a sensitive topic is communication through social media. Sometimes people are posting things. I get it. People tell me all the time, why you telling people all that kind of stuff. And the thing is sometimes in this reality, you never know who your message is going to reach. You know what I mean? Even with this podcast, I might post something from this or even a link to it, and people are giving their feedback to say how much of an impact it's had on them. So sometimes it's a risk, when you are sharing personal information or something that's considered sensitive with people that you don't know, sometimes it could be a benefit in the end, and sometimes it could come back to bite you. I know I was looking at a post the artist Ari Lennox had up the other day that I thought was really powerful, that she was talking about how she wishes that she hadn't shared certain things and hadn't opened up in certain ways, because she felt like, it's made her be stuck in a certain box and people refuse to allow her to come outside of that. You know what I mean? And I can imagine, again, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, how that's had an impact on her mental health, when people are not communicating with you in a way that is an exchange. They just want you to receive what they want you to hear, and that's it. So that's kind of unfair.
I think it's also interesting what that you just said is when you're speaking on artists, I definitely think when it comes to celebrities, that when they speak about politics or when they speak about their feelings, a lot of people, the question or something like that, or the statement comes up that you don't have a say because you're in this great spot and you have this, you have that, but still at the end of the day they're still an individual. They're still their own person. They still have feelings, and what they say does matter, and what they how they feel does matter. All this stuff matters, and even though they can change something, then than the everyday person, still what they say does matter.
I totally agree. The thing about us artists is that when they start, when they start as an artist and they put out their first, couple of songs, it's almost like they're setting the stage for their communication with us. You know what I mean? Where we have an expectation that this is the type of music you're putting out, and if you put something out that doesn't really match that, it's kind of like, wait a minute, this is a breakdown in communication between us and y'all, because, if, for instance, we got Drake comes out and he has like, all different, he might start singing and he might start rapping, but you haven't heard Drake do what? Like, what type of music haven't you heard him do?
Gospel.
Like gospel.
Or
if he just starts like singing gospel, all of a sudden, the thing that's interesting is he changes so much. So he is the type of artist that people will be like, wow, that's really crazy that he did that. They wouldn't cut him off. But certain artists are not able to really do that.
And I definitely think like it definitely gives it's more like a standoffish, more like, oh, I don't want to listen to your music. Or it's like a good example.
What do you mean by that before you go on?
Oh, but
okay.
So for example, I think what people was having mixed reviews on was with Chance the Rapper when he had his first couple albums like Acid Rap and stuff like that, and when he dropped The Big Day, I think I'm saying it right? A lot of people were feeling like some kind of way because it was like, oh, we all we want to hear is the OG Acid Rap and all that stuff like that. But now that you're doing all this, it's like, I'm not trying to listen to that. Or Kanye.
Yeah, that's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually not fair. And if you're using those examples as ways to set the stage for healthy communication, it's totally unfair. Because how can they be effectively communicating with us through their work if we're not even allowing them to really say what they really mean and change if they decide, like we said a few minutes ago, they go back and maybe they reevaluated and said, hey, I don't feel like that no more.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
So I think that's interesting. So every family doesn't communicate often or in the same ways. What do you think is a healthy time frame to check in and communicate with me?
I definitely think if a situation happens, maybe for me, I always like to give people time, and like, because you gotta, for me, how I see situations is, first you gotta understand it for yourself.
Understand what? You gotta give more examples when you're talking.
Understand the situation and how it affects you in a good way or bad way or any way. And if you can't understand that, then how can you think someone else can understand that? So when you do that realization and you're able to express that, then I feel like you should be able to check in or even ask that person, hey, whenever you're ready to have this conversation, then I'm here. Because I feel like everybody's way of checking in or, stuff is different. But I feel like if you presented that you're ready to have it, then it might give that person maybe a boost to like, okay, let me figure this out so we can, get past this and, be more healthy.
Okay, so for me, as far as a healthy time frame for checking in with you would be consistently. I would say that I don't let a day go by, like when you're at school, that I'm not texting you or giving you a call, you know what I mean? So that I can check in and see how you're doing or say goodnight or something like that, so that you have an expectation of what the pattern is, so that you know if that pattern is broken, you can know something is off and we need to check in with each other, you know what I mean? And I try to pay attention to your cues as well, whether you are sending me stuff on Instagram or whether you're calling me and saying, hey, I need to talk or something like that. I pay attention to those things, and I have an expectation to hear from you, you know what I mean, ever so often. And when I don't, I check in with you. I don't wait. But as far as to answer the question, as far as a healthy time frame, for me, I think a healthy time frame for me to hear from you and for you to check in, just regular checking in, no problems, nothing going on, would be at least every other day.
And with that, what are some questions and ways that you consider checking in? I think for me is, hey, how you doing? Or, hey, I'm just checking in. I'm just trying to see how you feel about maybe the conversation that we had. Or, hey, I heard that you maybe was learning a new skill or something like that, so I want to check in about that too. For me, I definitely think checking in always doesn't have to be about the bad things and about just you getting over a situation. It could be about anything that you have going on. And I definitely think when the person or when I come to you or you come to me, it shows that you're really interested in what I got going on, and that you are paying attention that, okay, since he or she likes to do this and is trying this new skill, let me see of what I can learn from it or present some things that they might not know or that I can put them on to. So those are some questions that I like for me. What about you?
So some questions, I agree with all that you said. To add on to that, for me, some questions to check in would be, before I start a conversation, I know that I'm getting ready to give you something heavy, I'll say, is this a good time for me to vent to you? Are you in a space right now where I can talk to you about this? Because just because you're my son, I shouldn't assume that you are just have open space and open mind all the time. You're a real person that might not be in the mood or in the space. You might have your own stuff going on. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that I think is healthy. Another thing would be, what was the best part of your day today? Oftentimes, we all go through stuff and something is happening all the time. But if we start to pay attention to what was the best part of the day, then it kind of starts to change the way you think and how you move. Because you're always looking forward to creating a goodness in your days. You know what I mean? If you're consistently expecting to hear about it, you think, okay, these things might have happened bad, but the best part of my day so far was the fact that I got to relax and nobody interrupted me. You know what I mean? It starts to make you pay attention to the gratitude you have in your life in a different way. And then also, one of the things that I think is important as far as a healthy conversation, a healthy topic for checking in, would be, when is the last time you did something for yourself? Mm-hmm. What did that look like when you did that? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then also, how is everything going right now with your friends? Have you checked in with them? Do you know what's going on with them, or do they always only know what's going on with you? So that I can make sure that you're checking in with other people and not becoming a one-sided kind of conversation type of person.
Right.
And then as far as you and I are concerned, another thing I try to check in is, when is the last time you prayed? So that I can be sure you were checking in with your spiritual side all the time before you do things and as you're doing things, to make sure that that's always intact. Anything else for you?
No.
All right. So do you think checking in is a two-way street as it relates to the expectation I have for you as far as checking in? Should it be the same, or do you think it should be different as far as my expectation for you checking in with me?
Are you saying that, like, if I have an expectation of you, should that be the same expectation?
I'm saying, like I said earlier, like, I have an expectation for you to check in with me every other day. You might not have that same amount of time, but do you think it should be a two-way street, or should I just have an expectation of you and it's not fair for you to have an expectation of me for checking in?
No, I definitely think you should definitely have expectations for both. It should go definitely both ways, and I definitely think you should express that. So, it's not in a situation where I'm expecting you to check up with me every other day and you expecting that from me, but you might only hear from me on Monday and I'll talk to you on Thursday. So I definitely think you have to express that and, say, like, well, this is like how I like to be checked in, or this is what I like, and, how do you feel about that? Or, do you think, what can we talk about that? So it's, both of our expectations are still getting met. And I definitely think, yeah, that's all I got.
Okay. All right. So for me, I think it's a two-way street, definitely. I think it's fair for us to both understand that both of us should be checking in. You know what I mean? We should both be checking in with each other, however consistently works for either one of us. You know what I mean? But on a consistent basis, to where you expect to hear from me. You know what I mean? It's not something that suddenly it's just normal for you and I to not be talking at all. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or doing anything. Like, I don't think that should be something that either of us should just get used to. So in that regard, I think it's definitely a two-way street for any parent and child, you know what I mean? Or anybody in a family or in a relationship in any way. I think it's fair for you to have a two-way street when it comes to checking in. It shouldn't just be that you're always the person expecting everybody to check in on you, but you never check in on anyone else, Mm-hmm. And you get upset that people don't check in on you, but you have never checked in on them. You don't know what's going on with your friends. You don't know what their health is like or anything. I don't think that's fair. So I think it's definitely a two-way street. You got anything else?
I don't.
All right. So we want to thank you again for joining us for another episode of Between Us and Y'all. This has been really good. This is a conversation that's really helpful. We are going to continue this conversation on our next episode, and we're excited to do that. And again, if you have any questions or, concerns that you have for Nafees or myself about any of the topics that we've discussed, please feel free to send us a message at betweenusandyall@gmail.com, or you can always inbox us on any social media platform that you're using. Instagram or Facebook is usually the easiest ones, but feel free to contact us. We're open and we don't mind answering questions, and if you want to be, allow us to share a question or something like that we didn't address as far as this conversation is concerned, feel free to share that with us as well. All right. This has been another episode. We want to thank y'all for being here.
Thank you guys for being here.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Have a good day. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Peace.
Peace.